we're going to say done. We've installed our profile. And at this point, we are finished, so we can actually just close our browser here. Let's go back. Now, at this point, you're immediately seeing that there is an app installation. So in terms of actually this initiation process, or initialization process, should I say, you're seeing a scenario where I send an email out, I click on a link, I then install the app. Now, there's certainly the option of just going directly to, or telling our customers to go directly to the App Store, and at that point, one second. Okay, so I got that. Okay, so now, again, the customers could download the app and being prompted again yet for another installation of a different app. So I've got a couple of apps that we're rolling out, so we're going to install this. Now, this is certainly all configurable to your, what you feel is appropriate or unintrusive to the customer. So again, I'm being prompted for a password requirement. That is because we have a policy that states that we have to have a password on our device. If you recall, when I logged into this device, it was totally unsecure. So at this point, we're just going to give it something simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, continue. I've got to do that once again. We're going to save that. And so that has now been installed. Now, actually, this took a lot less time than it has previously, so that's good. So a couple of things actually installed, and I was hoping you'd actually get to see these things. You may have saw them in the background. But I installed a link right here. This takes me to the RightStar website, so I can have a web link to a different site if I wish. It also installed the AirWatch app, and yet there was another app that was installed, and that was for Remedy Force. So being that Remedy Force is the service management solution that we're using, at this point it's going to be pertinent that you have access to the app. So at this point it's already been pre-configured. The user has access to their incidents and so forth here on the Remedy Force app. And then in terms of the AirWatch app, here a URL is already provided, so we just need to save this. And then this will give us some of the capabilities with the agent that's actually installed on the device. So AirWatch would like to know where my current location is. That's fine. I'll grant them access to that. And here's my phone, some general location information. The device is enrolled, so all is good. So we're just going to kind of set this off to the side for the moment. And, oops, that's distorted. I'm going to set that off to the side here just for a moment. So we'll go back and talk about some of the capabilities that we have with, that didn't work out too good for me here, so let's size that appropriately. We'll just put that in the background. All right. So back in the console, let's take a look at, so we saw how we would define our locations and groups. For users, we talked about how we import those. Let's take a look at profiles. Because profiles ultimately is what determines the capability that the user has, or what we want to control or not control, that type of thing. So at this point, we've got a couple of profiles. We can see that we have, for this one profile, we've assigned it to 3 devices. Only 2 have been installed at this point. And but before we actually look at that, let's look at the profile itself. So in general, here we have our RightStar iOS profile that we've named it. At this point, it is going to be managed, meaning that we're going to push that down to the user, but certainly we can make this a manual option for customers. The assignment type is automatically defined. We could make it optional, interactive, and certainly measure it in terms of compliance. Do we want to restrict this to any certain model or any type of ownership? So we talked earlier about the ownership of devices. If I only wanted to apply this profile to employee-owned scenarios, then we'd select this. Now, I'm not so much concerned about this. This is a profile that I want to assign to any and all devices within organizations. Now, keep in mind you can have multiple profiles. So with that being said, we may have a very general profile that grants us access to the Wi-Fi network and email, and maybe some just very general restrictions. But then we can have additional profiles that we can assign to groups of users that will be further constricting based upon our needs. Okay? So here, what groups are we going to assign this profile to? Basically everybody that's in the Western region. And then, so let's look at specifically some of the things that we've defined. Well, one of the things that we've said is that a passcode is going to be required. So it is required on the device. We do allow simple values, but certainly we can determine the strength of that passcode if we wish to do so. Okay. Also, in terms of the locking time and the minutes in which, grace period we have. Restrictions. Here we can determine what restrictions individuals have. If I didn't want someone to have access to a camera, to be able to take pictures, maybe I was dealing with, products that were in prototype, and I was concerned that that pictures might get leaked out for these devices or new products, something to that effect, I might want to restrict access to the camera. In addition to that, we talked about Siri. So, Dick asked earlier about Siri, if we could restrict access to Siri. So at this point, I can not allow Siri as a feature on the iOS device. In terms of mobile Wi-Fi connections, here we have the ability to pre-configure the Wi-Fi connection. And so this is great because, again, from an administrative or management standpoint, I can pre-configure this, push it out to all my users. So if someone wants access to the corporate network, well, first, they have to have AirWatch installed on their phone, and two, that AirWatch agent is already going to pre-configure the Wi-Fi settings for them. In addition to Wi-Fi settings, we have the ability to define VPN, pre-configure the VPN connections. So based upon a number of normal types of connections, VPN connections, we have everything from Cisco to F5, and so forth and so on, as well as any custom options. Pre-configuring email is yet another option. So here again, we can predefine what type of mail account this will be, the server information for both incoming and outgoing email. All of that is pre-configured. And what's nice about this is, again, from a support standpoint, you don't have to worry about it being correct because it's going to be correct based upon the settings that you define here. So it certainly will reduce the number of incoming calls that you might have to the service desk as it relates to configuring access to these different technologies. Exchange Active Sync, LDAP, web clips. You actually saw this earlier. So here's a web clip where I've labeled it RightStar. This this allows me to go directly to the RightStar website, whether it be an internal and external website. I can define all that, but the point is if customers or if my employees need quick access to certain websites, internet, extranet sites, I can provide web clips here as well. So again, this is the configuration for an iOS device, and actually I'm not going to say those changes, so we're going to leave the camera and Siri active on that endpoint. But in terms of the devices itself that we support, or the mobile device management support, we have profile options or templates for Android, iOS, Mac OS X, BlackBerry, Symbian, and Windows devices as well. So all of these are slightly different based upon what the capability is of that endpoint, but certainly we support the major operating environments for mobile devices. So with that, now that we've defined our profile, that was actually what was pushed down to the user. So let's actually just see how some of this, so it looks like I've got a meeting that somebody's wanting me to participate in, so we're going to close that out. But let's just close out of our device, and now let's try to go back in. Now, immediately, I'm being prompted for a passcode. So if you recall earlier, this was an unsecure option that we had earlier. So now I'm in the device, and I have the ability to see all the detailed information. If we go back to the dashboard, again, we quickly see an inventory of all those devices, what types of device, the operating system that they're on, all those types of things. But here, if I wanted to learn more information about Ron's device, well, I just simply click here, and we'll expand this so we have the full screen to this information. But at this point, we can do a number of things. From a management standpoint, we can clear the passcode. So if someone forgot their passcode, we can clear that out. We can lock the device for them. So if someone says that they forgot, maybe someone forgot their phone in a taxi, and they're going to call the taxi service, but they don't want that information to be accessible, and so we can lock that device. Here we have an enterprise wipe as well as a device wipe. Now, the enterprise wipe allows me, in a bring your own device scenario, it allows me to wipe all of the configurations that MDM has configured on that endpoint. So I can, take all of that off of the device while maintaining any apps that I've downloaded from personally, or any music that I might have, movies that I might have on that mobile device. So the enterprise wipe will just take off the management components of MDM. The device wipe will pretty much does that. It's going to basically restore it to the manufacturer's settings as it was when you opened up the box. Other support things that we have available to us. If I wanted to send a message, well, here, if there was a need to do that, I can certainly do that. Now let's try this again. So here in a second, we'll see a message come across the line, and just received something. So we'll see that. Actually, it's not even showing on the screen. I apologize for that. Okay, so the ability to send messages, find the device. This is a nice feature. So if you've misplaced your device, at this point, you can see AirWatch is trying to find. Now, I've got my volume muted on the endpoint, but you would hear a ping every so often to help the customer find their device. Request device check-in. So if I want to know, where they are, I can do that, and then ultimately sync that device. So again, general information about the device, the UDID, asset information, and so forth. Other things to note: we have full inventory of all the apps that are on this endpoint. Okay. Here's the certificate that was used to certify the policy that we delivered. In terms of compliancy, I don't have any compliancy policies defined, but we can see what compliancy policies, the content that's available. So we have, in addition, we've made this AirWatch hardware software requirements doc available to users through the mobile device. Their location. Well, this utilizes the GPS capability of the phone, so we can see exactly where that phone is. And you're seeing me sitting in my home office. Okay. In addition to that, we have the network information, general information about the network. What profiles or how many profiles are actually installed on this device. And if we want to remove a profile or install a profile, we have the ability to do that from here as well. In terms of securing, here we have some just general information. You can see that the data on this device, actually data protection is not enabled right now, but we did have the ability to encrypt all the data on the device if you wish to. We do have block level encryption, which is enabled at the moment, and then file level encryption is also enabled.